lai du zeden chu je chen rab zir je da lu de mu men ba rab sar ka dan den ju shun lu do ba ye lu zhi bo bia tang wa zar du sar. Bon après-midi.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, we've come to the part about offerings. So, as we saw before, the Bhadrachari, translated as the King of Aspiration prayer, starts with the sevenfold practice. So among those 7 parts, we studied the first one, and now we come to the second part, the part about offerings, the practice of offering. Yesterday, we mentioned that the offering practice comes as a generosity practice in the framework of the generosity practice. So in Tibetan it starts with Meto Tampa Changwa. In English it comes as sumptuous flowers, beautiful garlands, precious parasols, fine cymbals and bombs, radiant lamps, and the most fragrant incense. I offer them to you, O victorious ones. Such wonderful arrays, all perfectly presented, exquisite apparel and sweet-smelling perfume, jars of scented power piled high like a mountain, I offer them to you, O victorious ones. So it's the next 2 stanzas. So about offerings, there are 2 kinds of offerings: the insurpassable offerings and the surpassable offerings. So the first 2 stanzas here introduce the surpassable offerings. In a way, surpassable here mean maybe not ordinary, but rather that we can do offerings even better than this. This is more like what we are able to do actually in what we imagine when it is about offering. And so now Rinpoche reads the French translation from the Chinese version so that we don't have in English. So in Tibetan we have this word tampa, meto tampa, that is used. So this qualifies the flowers, the garlands, And then we have another adjective, chalk, that qualify parasols, lamps. So we have two kind of adjectives here, two virtues. In French and in English, it was translated as sumptuous, precious, radiant. So we have a bigger variety of adjectives here. So here, of course, there was this objective to make the translation sound nice. But anyway, here the two in Tibetan are synonymous. Dampa means noble, authentic, very good, and chok means something that is superior, sublime, excellent. So all those qualifiers show just that all those offerings are of good quality, are excellent. We don't offer bad or low things, we only offer beautiful and sublime things. So in Taranata's commentary, all the offerings that are disposed, that we imagine to offer, we imagine they are of a good and excellent quality, of a beautiful color and shape, attracting, pleasant, whether it's sense objects such as sound, odors, or tangible objects. All of them are ideal and are also presented. They are also presented very nicely. They are very nicely arranged in a beautiful and harmonious way. And we also imagine they are of a wide variety of different flowers, of different jewels that are presented as garlands, arranged as garlands, or as clouds. Concerning about the music instruments and their sound, here we talk about cymbals, and we can also include there all other varieties of instrument, not only cymbal like percussion like instruments, but also wind instruments and all. So here we imagine that all sounds are beautiful, harmonious, melodious. Also, in the same way, are offered beautiful and very pleasant smells, odors. Because we have here so parasols, cymbals, and bombs. So bombs are some kind of oils we can apply, that can be applied on the body, that smell really good. Then there are the sublime parasols. So by extension, there are all the different kind of ornaments that, for example, we can see in Tibetan temples in Tibet that take origin in India. So I don't really know the technical terms in French, says Rinpoche. But they are like tapestries that we put on the pillars, all the kind of ornaments. So here, just a small notice, we don't have to visualize a precise style such as Tibetan style, Indian style, Thai style, Chinese style. It doesn't matter. Whatever inspires you in general, whatever you like, this is what you have to offer. The offering has to express the joy of offering, the enthusiasm, and what we offer is beautiful, is of a high quality. What we perceive, things that we perceive this way. For example, if you want to continue this practice in your daily life, when you're facing a beautiful landscape or you see any beautiful objects, sublime object, instead of having envy, we better offer it in our mind to the Buddha. And doing so, we go beyond attachment and we are able to appreciate that kind of attitude. These things become the source of merit, actually. And another thing I want to add here, Rinpoche says, I mentioned the word merit. So you're probably going to wonder, what is merit? So here, essentially, what we have to understand is everything that is thoughts, actions that lead us, any thought, action that lead to wisdom, that give access to wisdom, and that allows one to go beyond one's afflictions, to go beyond one's ignorance or delusion. So to go on in that discussion about offerings, in the text we have the parasols, all the kind of tapestries, fabric ornaments, stone ornaments, lamps. So we can imagine them as ordinary lamps or extraordinary lamps, like jewels, and they're lotus-shaped jewels that are brilliant. And then we have incense. So some are of natural smell, or some are like perfume, like created, manufactured smell. So those perfume that come out when the thing is warmed up, when it is in contact with heat. So here we have that tradition to make offerings, right? We make offerings in front of the representation of body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas, Buddhist speech and mind, stupas or chaityas, representations of Buddha's body. The chaitya represents the mind of the Buddha. The scripture represent the speech of the Buddha. All those are objects of veneration, and especially scriptures, texts that contain Buddha's teaching and that are extremely precious and are extremely revered and respected in a general way in Buddhism. In Buddhism, it is really important to develop respect towards all what represents Buddha's speech, but also to persevere in reading and studying scriptures, in understanding the meaning of the scriptures, especially in applying its meaning. So when we talk about offering, we can, like for generosity here, the motivation is very important. It is underlying meaning in here. We engage into prostrations, into offerings on the basis of having generated bodhicitta, and because with the goal of realizing enlightenment for all sentient beings. So we are moved by loving kindness and compassion to all sentient beings, and it's on that basis that we engage into that practice. The practice of generosity is mostly detachment, and we get rid of what is hard to get rid of. And in particular, it's important here that the generosity is something enthusiastic, joyful. It's not a sacrifice. It's not like the Buddha wants us to do those offerings and we have to do it, like we pay taxes as a Buddhist would be the Buddhist tax. If we practice in that way, it's not offerings anymore. Buddha actually don't mind about all those things we offer them and we imagine. They don't need it. We don't do it for them. We do it to accomplish merits, meaning favorable conditions to be able to truly understand and observe reality, ultimate reality of our mind and of all phenomena. So that in order to be able to enter the absolute dimension. So regarding that aim, for a beginner, we can differentiate physical offerings that are presented to the body, speech, and mind representation of the Buddha and of the three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, representation of the Sangha, the bodhisattvas. And it's very important here to not have any greediness or any feeling of obligation. It's something that has to be done with choice. So first of all, it's very important to train in the generosity's quality. That's why usually following the Tibetan example, we offer water bowl. We have water bowl offerings, as you can see here in front of the shrine. Why do we offer water? Because it's basically free and it existed in abundance in Tibet, which is the source of the greatest river of Asia. So in that there is not any feeling of greediness, not any feeling like we are giving up something. And slowly, gradually, when our discernment of the non-existing nature of things, the non-existence of subject, object, and action manifest. When it does, there will be less attachment, and the less attachment we have, the more we'll be able to give more precious and more rare things than water. The important thing here is not to give, it's the way we give. Meaning here the motivation that brings us to wanting to make an offering, the devotion we have towards the three jewels when we make that offering. And so the real giving, the joy in giving is the most important aspect in offering, in the offering practice. So generosity practice is something that can be gradually developed. And here we can come back on Taranata's commentary where he quotes another stanza. That he says exists in some Sanskrit version of the text, and that were translated later on by some translators in Tibet, where it is talking about the stanza that actually adds other offerings, sublime jewels, sublime necklaces, divine ornaments, all the divine ornaments, tapestry, and all are also offered. And here he adds that this part is not present in old commentaries, and also it's not in any old translation of the text. And nowadays, no one recites this stanza. So it's not necessary to comment here, to really comment on it here. It's not hard to understand. So here we have divine fabrics made by humans, made by men, water offerings, perfumes that are offered, piles of powder, of perfumed powders, and we think that each of these offering is of a very high and exceptional quality, arranged in an exceptional manner, like very beautifully, and those offerings are extraordinarily immense, vast, and so they are produced in one's imagination. So we can at the same time make physical offerings, real offerings, whatever it is, and we can also imagine it. So imagine imaginary offerings and real offerings have the same strength. Imaginary offerings are as strong or powerful as the real offerings. So we can multiply real offerings For example, there is also what we call Samantabhadra's offering in ocean. And so we imagine here that ourself, from each of our pore, emanates an infinite area of light, and from that, each of these area of light, an infinity of ourself emanates, and on each of these replica, an infinity of area of light that where an infinity of ourself emanates, and so on like that. It's not especially explained here, but it's also an offering method, Rinpoche says. Then we can read a little before in the sutra itself. Then, noble son, what do we mean by exerting in making large offerings? In each atom of each universe, of each space, in all time, in all the time until the very end of the sky in the absolute dimension, there are as many Buddhas as the atoms of all the worlds, each of them surrounded by all the oceans of bodhisattva assembly. Remember that this aspiration prayer inspire you such a deep faith so that you can see all the Buddhas in front of you and are able to honor all the Buddhas with arrays of flowers, arrays of music, arrays of parasols, arrays of clothes as beautiful as divine clothes, bombs, incense, and perfume, powder, all of divine quality, all of these arrays being as big as the Mount Meru. All these offerings, all kind of candles, all candle, and all of them will be as big as the Mount Meru, and each oil lamp will be as vast as the ocean. Noble son, Samantabadhra says, from all the offering, the best one is the Dhamma offering, meaning the offering of practice, the offering of others' benefit, the offering of welcoming beings, offering one's taking others' suffering, offering the root of virtue, offering the abandonment of the activity of bodhisattva, and offering the enlightened mind. The immeasurable merits that we've just talked about are not even equal to one small part of all those merits. Not even the smallest kalpa, the smallest metaphor, even the smallest quantity. Why so? Because the verse gone one revere Dharma, and Buddhas emanate from Dharma practice as it was taught. Bodhisattvas who practice Dharma offering honor with offerings the thus gone one, because practicing so is doing real offerings and proceeding to the largest and the most sublime offerings. If the space offering as beings with their karma and their negative emotion had an end, offerings would have an end as well. However, because the sphere of space and the one of beings with their negative emotion have no end. The offerings that you are doing will never take an end, will never end. Instant after instant, you will follow them without any interruption and without neither your body, speech, or mind get weary. So this is the offering part. So in the second part of the text is presented a second form of offering, a second kind of suffering, which is the unsurpassable offering. Or unsurpassed offering. Sorry. So here it's the seventh stanza. These vast and superlative offerings express my confidence in all of the Buddhas. With the strength of conviction in excellent conduct, I bow and present them to the victorious ones. So now Rinpoche is going to read Patrick Carre's French translation. So here, on one hand, I aspire to do unsurpassable offerings that are perfect in each and every point. So here, through aspiration, we want to make offerings such as the bodhisattva did, meaning bodhisattvas who have already realized emptiness. Those are able to really do such offerings. So here, concerning the unsurpassed offering, it's simply given that we haven't realized emptiness, we're gonna make that offering. It doesn't mean we are excluded from the possibility of making that offering. We can do it, we can aspire, we can wish to be able to make that offering. So it is the offering that is the true offering, meaning that somehow the Dhamma's offering is the best offering we can do. The best offering we can do to enlightenment is enlightenment itself. It's aspiring to enlightenment, and until then being able to contemplate emptiness, cultivating a love and compassion towards all sentient beings. These are the true offering that Buddha and Bodhisattva like. So here we make the wish that today I aspire to do such offering, and we wish that in the near future we'll be able to really do that kind of offering by the force of the aspiration to the noble conduct or the noble activity. So relying on my faith and my devotion to noble activity. So the first unsurpassable offering is generating bodhicitta. The second is remembering Tathagata's Dharma. And the third one is the Dharma that was understood is to actualize it, meaning to apply it. Those are the unsurpassable offerings. So here it is explained that those three kind of offerings are accomplished by the fact that we aspire to Buddhahood, to our devotion and admiration to the Buddha, and because of our trust, our faith in the activity or in the conduct, in the excellent conduct. Padrachari. So as we saw previously in Samantabhadra's words just before, those unsurpassable offerings, the merit of those offerings is much vaster than all the merits of the offerings we saw before, we talked about before. For example, it is said the following. I don't remember the exact quotation, says Rinpoche, but just the mere fact that we turn toward enlightenment, that we aspire to enlightenment, the merit of that is so vast, so immense, then even like if that merit had to take a shape, even the infinite space won't be big enough to contain it, to embrace it. The merit of developing bodhicitta. So before going on with the next part, I'm going to give you some space for questions and answer as I promised before. Please ask your questions. Thank you, Rinpoche. And in advance, I'm sorry if what I say is a bit reduced. So, you indicated for prostrations this morning. We have to imagine on each atom of the universe an infinity of Buddhas, and I should imagine I prostrate and I multiply myself in front of all the Buddhas. And you said a few times doing so that prostration will be uninterrupted. And now you just said the same thing with offerings, they will be uninterrupted in the infinity of space. So you put in parallel the karma sphere that is endless. So in the practice of generosity, it seems to me that the aspiration was to empty samsara from all the negative karma, so that beings won't be trapped into samsara. So if I formulate aspirations in that direction. So Rinpoche says here we have to be a bit more precise. We're not wishing for samsara's perpetuation. It's not like that. Buddhas and bodhisattvas, all of them constantly work to establish all sentient beings without any exception in the perfect enlightenment. So here it's rather regarding the extent of our devotion to enlightenment, our appliance to enlightenment, exertion, which is from the beginning just in the wanting to establish all beings in enlightenment. As long as there will be sentient beings, our activity will go on. So we should understand that stanza, and I'm going to read it because I see what you mean. Here it is repeated at the end of each practice. Just a moment, says Rinpoche. I have to look. If the sphere of space as the one of sentient beings with their negative karma had an end, our offerings would have an end. And because the sphere of space, the space basically, and the beings with negative karma have no end, the offerings we are doing have no end. Here it expresses courage. Actually, the samsara will be forever. Forever there will be beings in confusion, and as long as there will be beings in confusion, I won't lose courage, and my engagement towards sentient beings will not end. Of course, if all sentient beings are established in enlightenment, this is not needed anymore. This is expressed here by the bodhisattva. Here that affirmation really expresses courage, devotion, and considering that samsara will never end. And in that case, I will forever work for a being's benefit. Because we can think that, on the other hand, we can think, oh, samsara will last forever, so why should I stay? I can't do anything anyway. It's possible to think so. It's the logic, it's the Shravaka, practitioner's motivation. It doesn't mean a Shravaka practitioner has no love, no compassion towards sentient beings, but actually beings are infinite in number. And all difficulties that we will encounter through helping sentient beings are really big, really great. It's great difficulties for an immeasurable duration of time. For example, we can make a simple comparison. If we just imagine on this planet Earth, we are 7 billion people. If we imagine, oh, today I want to be beneficial, I'm going to give to each human a cup of coffee. But can we really do that? We would need at least 7 billion euros. Can we do so? What bodhisattvas give are even more than a cup of coffee. They give happiness, love, and most of all, they establish them in the perfect enlightenment. It's such a generosity. It's such a devotion to sentient beings that we can't imagine it. It's imagine. We can't think about it. It's unthinkable. Their kindness is unthinkable. So this is to this that we aspire. We try to develop ourselves such a kindness towards sentient beings in that perspective. So in that perspective, in order to help sentient beings, we turn towards the absolute dimension represented by all Buddhas. All this infinity of Buddhas to which we do prostrations, we give offerings. This is in order to help all these sentient beings. So here it is. I hope it answers your questions. So as I was saying before, a Shravaka practitioner from the Shravaka vehicle, for him it seems impossible. The bodhisattva, and this is like that, it's because of that devotion and that courage that he is able to develop enlightenment, which is the source of good for beings that are always developing. Another question? So yesterday you talked about wishes that are filling Dhagpo and Kundalini books, notebooks, which are full of grasping and attachment. And I understood that those wishes were supports for vaster wishes that encompass, actually, that comprehend the benefit of all sentient beings. So I thought it was like a first step. Yes, they have attachment, but at the end they will be vaster. I thought it was so. So Rinpoche answers, I was actually talking about the motivation of the one who requests for that, for wishes. The one who requests for someone else. For example, often people who engage on a spiritual path will rely to someone they consider superior. For example, in Christianity, Jesus, pagan to Zeus, and all the saints that we have in the West, and Buddhism, we may rely to the Buddha, the bodhisattvas. But if we look, really, people hope for a kind of transaction. I'm doing that offering, but I ask you in return to give me this or that. Usually, what do we ask for? We ask for wealth, health, fortune, and all. So this only represents to actually attachment to this life. And then beyond this life, in some religions, and especially in Buddhism, there is this idea of life beyond this one, the future, so another life, an afterlife. So it's not only what I will obtain in this life that is important, it's also to obtain qualities, superior qualities better than that. So I'm not actually criticizing, saying it's bad to do that kind of request to Buddha or Bodhisattva. It depends of your own personal maturity. If you're attached to that, of course, naturally this is what you would ask for. Otherwise, you would just ask to actualize enlightenment. You would ask for wisdom. This is the prayer that is better to do, which is more beneficial for oneself. Because if we obtain health and wealth, It's just something temporary, it doesn't last forever. So whatever our motivation is when we do offerings to monks, to monastics, they will make wishes and they will dedicate their merit so that your wishes come true. And especially they will dedicate their merit so that you reach enlightenment. Even if you don't ask for it yourself, Buddhas and Bodhisattva wish it for you. They want to bring you much more than else. They want you to get enlightenment. But we are blind to that. We just want the beautiful car or whatever. And somehow we reject the most beautiful gift for a lower gift. But this is on our side. This is our personal responsibility, the one who prays. So I want to talk about this sentencing as many Buddhas as atoms in the universe on each and every particle. Each time I hear that, it reminds me koans, the sentences we find in Zen Buddhism. And the goal in those short sentences is to realize the limit of our conceptual thought. They prepare to a non-verbal experience of reality, and I was wondering if that parallel I'm doing is right, if that sentence is a kind of skillful mean, or what do you think? Of course, Rinpoche's answers, those are means to introduce us, to bring us to develop wisdom and discernment, and its different mean, whether it is count, in fact, it is very hard on such a small particle to imagine that there are as many universes as there are atoms. It's something inconceivable. The unity of measure in that text, the basic unity of measure is the unspeakable of the unspeakable. Hello Rinpoche, so I have a question concerning offerings. I have difficulties to make offerings on my shrine. Developing generosity, helping people to buy coffee if they need, giving food to those who need makes sense for me. And I see why it is important, why generosity is important. But filling water balls in front of statues giving flowers doesn't really make sense for me. I feel I can use my time better. Especially now, I start to understand that there is no real duality, so I don't really know to whom I'm making the offerings. What I understand is that Buddhas are free from attachment. Whether they get water or not, it won't make a difference for them. I feel I'm doing those offerings rather for myself. So can you help me on that point? Help me feel it actually makes sense to make offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So Rinpoche answers, in a general way, when we enter the practice, it is important to integrate different elements in our life. Many things that we do allows us to create references, create routines, reminders, a framework. But if we really grasp on the framework and don't develop the meaning, then it will just seem like something we do by tradition, by convention, by obligation, without really understanding the meaning of the reference. So offering balls, the texts we are reading, the stanzas we are reading are references, are frameworks, are help to develop ourselves. But what is important here is to develop generosity, a generous mind. And in the generous mind, other parameters have to be included. For example, wisdom. So the offering, the physical offering we do, if we don't multiply it, if we don't dedicate it, it's very limited actually. Just offering balls in cheap balls bought in China is not something very inspiring or sublime. It depends, of course, how much capacity you have. If you can buy crystal balls, it's better. But what is important here is to be able to purify, multiply, increase the offering. And all this is done with our imagination. For example, we recite Samantabadhra standards, and because of that recitation, the sounds aren't magic. Actually, if we recite it like a parrot, we just make offerings quickly, do the quick recitation, thinking what we will do after breakfast, then it's not a real offering. We really have to rely on references, on supports, different supports, and think about the absolute dimension. All the Buddhas, all the Buddha and Bodhisattvas qualities, and mentally aspire to be in their presence. And doing so, we are connected to those Buddha. We are in relation. We have a relation with those Buddha, and in that way, it's beneficial. There is merit, and it slowly brings us to unsurpassable offerings. And that activity will somehow be a framework for the rest of our journey to enlightenment. It will shape the way we understand our journey. In Vajrayana, those offerings are presented differently. There are technical differences, but altogether the meaning is the same. It takes different aspects, but the meaning is the same. There are different aspects, and also degree of understanding that is more or less deep, according to the vehicle and according to our personal understanding. So what is important here is to be able to study scriptures, understand, integrate them, and slowly, according to our personal capacity, to put it into practice. But it is really essential here that practice itself makes sense, that we understand what we are doing. That we understand the aspect, the form, but it's important. But what is most important is the reason, the sense, the meaning, and they feed each other. Do you have more questions? So, according to what you said, the offering is also quite pedagogical, in a way that what we're able to offer, as an offering to the Buddhas, we can also offer it to all sentient beings. We are able to do so. Rinpoche says, yes, it's important, as I was saying. For example, ordinarily, when we gather to study Dhamma, first we take refuge, we generate bodhicitta, we recite the four immeasurable, and those are done before making actual offerings. Those are very important. We cultivate our motivation, and it's a question of refining our thought, our attitude, cultivating qualities such as loving kindness, compassion, choice, equanimity. Those four qualities are really important in all Buddhist vehicles, and especially here for the bodhisattva. For the bodhisattva, the motivation has a very important place, and we train every day in the 6 parameters according to one's capacity, and we deepen the practice. It's not something where we say, oh, today I have holidays, I'm gonna go to meditation retreat, and then I'm gonna go back to daily life. It's not like that. Practice is present 24/7. But it depends of our understanding, our capacity to put it into practice. The more we deepen our knowledge, the more we know how to practice. Many people want to practice, but they haven't studied Karma. They have no knowledge. They don't know how to practice. Then they go to retreat. They recite things they don't understand, and then they don't make real progress. Why? Because they haven't understood at first. It's the Master Sakyapandita who was saying, the one who didn't listen Dhamma and want to practice is like the one who is attached and would like to climb the mountain. So the goal of studying is not to be a scholar or to make a profession out of it. It's to know why we practice. What is the goal of practice? So at this very moment, each instant of practice will be much more efficient, will have larger fruits. So understanding Dhamma is really essential. And with understanding, naturally, the ability to practice comes. We are inclined. We come to practice. We don't need to force ourselves. Enthusiasm for practice comes. The more we understand, the more it comes. At the end of rituals in Dhagpo, we recite the Long Life Sutra, Thaye Dorje. So talking about that sutra, I'm not sure I understand the meaning of that recitation. We recited, but I'm not sure I understand what it really means. So Rinpoche says, you have to look at the sutra. There might be it might be possible to access explanation to that sutra. It's not really in the framework of that teaching, so you have to look at the text itself. And the specific instruction concerning that practice. So I want to. So she's also talking about the Long Life Sutra. She says she recite it in French, only in French, because otherwise it really doesn't make sense. And she's wondering whether it has the same benefit as in if we recite it in Tibetan language. So Rinpoche answers, just think first. First, what language was the Buddha speaking? We don't really know. We only have a vague idea. It was a kind of Indian language, probably very different from Sanskrit or Pali, even though it was connected to that. And so we have texts in which the Buddha where it is said that the Buddha was teaching in a spoken language, accessible language, not a very like saint or special language. So there is no sacralization in Buddhism for that. It was translated into Chinese, in Tibetan, in other Indian languages in all times. So nowadays we find translations in French and in English. And here the most important is that it is well translated, that we study the text, that we try to gather proper informations. So Rinpoche says, I'm sorry, maybe it's hard for you to hear two different translations in French, but sometimes it's better to hear two different translations, because we then can go beyond attachment to words, to the way they are put together. I think it's good to do so, Rinpoche says. But the thing with that translation is that the thing with translation is that some dharanis, some mantras were not translated, and therefore it is good to recite them in Sanskrit, because those mantras are sound that were blessed. We can say that Buddha dedicated that merit so that those who hear those sounds get benefits from those sounds. So we consider it is important to recite them in Sanskrit, in the language in which they were presented to. So some mantras have very deep meanings. Some explanations are given about that we should study. For example, the mantra of Vajrasattva, the 100-syllable mantra that we often recite, is one of them. There is a very deep explanation of that we can study and understand, and so we'll know what each syllable means. It requires a bit of work, but it's accessible. Otherwise, all aspiration prayers, practices, meditation descriptions. For example, when we formulate the four of Brahma Vihara, the four immeasurable, when we say and all, it's said in Tibetan because here it's like our tradition here. But when you practice on your own, you can just say, may all sentient beings know happiness and the causes of happiness. You can use that sentence as a reminder to cultivate loving kindness towards all sentient beings. And so that phrase indicates that. May all sentient beings be free from sufferings and the causes and sufferings, etc. So if you don't have more questions, we had online questions. One of them is, can you precise the meaning of devotion that we often understand as we understand it in Christianity? So Rinpoche says, I think I kind of already answered to that question. Devotion or faith are kind of synonymous. They translate Shraddha in Tibetan Depa. Depa is translated as devotion, so that we don't really use faith in order to avoid using faith. But whatever word we are using, the meaning of Depa is what I was explaining. It is described as a kind of lucidity, clarity, and understanding that is not yet fully pure and complete, but there is a clarity, a lucidity in there, and we understand what is reality, what is beneficial. There is a trust that comes with, and this is faith. It is something really important. It makes our engagement on the Buddhist path. We don't yet have the understanding of emptiness, so we can see individually what didn't bring us to Dharma, what did inspire us in Dharma. So it can be an encounter, a teaching, or something that made us partially perceive the truth of Dharma in a way or another. And this is faith or devotion, Depa, in Buddhism. So, for example, in Buddhist literature, it talks about obtaining that we have obtained our precious human existence, the precious human body. We have that kind of formula. Sometimes we understand it wrongly. Sometimes we think, oh, it is precious to be a human. It's rare and special to be a human. Actually, it's not the point. Here, the point is, among the whole human condition, we have obtained the precious condition. And what makes that condition precious and unique? It is that we've met Dharma. We have access to Dharma. A Buddha has appeared, he has taught, the teaching have come to us, we have access to it, we've met them. It's many circumstances that don't all depend on us. And there is also the inner condition that makes that today we have that opportunity, and that inner condition is Depa, faith or trust. In Shantideva, in the first chapter, there is a stanza saying, it's like the lightnings. It's like the light that turns the sky. So usually we are in the total darkness. It's an image for our inner state. The reality of mind is really not recognized. And so suddenly, like light that turns away the night, the reality is seen. And Shantideva says, you have to grasp it because it's rare and temporarily. If you don't grasp that opportunity right now, you may fall again in darkness. This is what Shantideva says. He says that the fact that you met Dharma, you have access to the teaching, you have that opportunity, and you have that faith, meaning you have that idea of the truth of the teaching, you have that motivation that you want to pursue Dharma, and this makes your condition so precious. It's so extraordinary because you have it, you really have an opportunity to become a Buddha, and so to be liberated, to put an end to that infinite rebirth cycle of samsara. So don't waste that opportunity. It's because of Buddha's blessing, because of our own karma's maturity. It's a beautiful chance, opportunity to be able to access the teaching. We have the means to understand them, we have the capacity, we have the time to practice them. In the world, in the universe, there aren't any happier opportunity. We can think, oh, it would be really nice to be a billionaire, to have this or that. We can think, oh, it would be nice if I was younger, if I was more intelligent. It's not like that. Those are just excuses to not really study and practice. Today you have all the opportunities gathered here, and it's really important to really fully engage in Dhamma study. So I'm going to go on with the next question. Rinpoche says, so it's different. We have to differentiate with among the blind faith. It's different with blind faith. Blind faith is thinking it's true, but we don't know why. It's not the same. Next question. Next online question. So from which moment the bodhisattva's engagement becomes natural, and it's too fast in French. So what is important here is the motivation. The motivation to apply oneself firmly to a practice. It's a question of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm comes from the fact that we appreciate the quality, we see Dhamma's benefit, we appreciate them. The more we see those, the more we appreciate those, the more we want to practice those, and the more we can apply ourselves to that. And thanks to practice, we can familiarize ourselves more and more. But here again, as I was saying, I'm coming back on the same point. Most important is to study Dhamma, listen to the teachings, reading scriptures, thinking about the meaning, asking questions, criticizing the points, trying to really observe by ourselves what the teaching talks about. The more you do it, the more your understanding will go deeper, will refine. And that is already a real transformation. When we talk about blessing of the Buddha, this is the possibility to really deepen our understanding, to be able to discriminate better. And if there is understanding, it's important to maintain it, to not forget. So here, as we could see in the past, an important quality, Denpa Jeshin, Smriti, the fact of remembering the object of virtue, the virtuous object. And so we can really make progress. And then last question. You talked about ethics, how to do when we took the 5 vows and we have animals that we have to treat them for insects, parasites. It's very difficult for me. So thank you, Rinpoche, for your help. When we have pets, they have fleas and all. What to do? So Rinpoche says, Yes, the best is to try to prevent that before and treat it the best way we can. That is the less harmful to the two beings. That's the best I can say. Thank you for your attention. If you don't have more questions, I think we're going to leave it here today. And thank you. Please join me in the
Nam diye tamche ziba nye tone nyebe ranam pamchin chega na je balap truba ye sibe tsolen rowa sho chanchu simcho rinpoche ma che panam chi ju cheba nyamba mepa tang kone kondo pewar sho. Merci.